Hello, Derek McKee, Purdue University. I was wondering if you got in contact with any of the vendors and actually asked them why they're not implementing these mitigations, and what did they say?
So for ASCO consideration, we didn't contact any of the vendors. So all the result or all the conclusions we have presented is all based on our data and our evaluation. So we don't have a chance to talk to the vendor, but if we do, we will.
But you didn't mention that you have you reported the results to vendors and interviewed them. Did you?
No, we didn't report any of our results to the vendor.
After the study?
No.
Roland Yap, National University. Did you look more closely into the binaries, like when was it built and what light? And so you mentioned there's certain amount of sharing, but if one looks more carefully at the actual contents of the binaries, executables and libraries, perhaps one.
Okay, so this is a very good question. Indeed, we look into the binaries to determine whether it's used the like libc or any other libraries like UC libc. So, in fact, we find that yes, we do have the time of the binaries. Yeah. So, the way we determine the time of the binary is based on the metadata we collected during downloading the firmwares. So, in general, the vendors will release their firmware with a time step, so we can use that to keep track of the time released by the binary. Yeah.
Hi there, Marius Münchview, Amsterdam. Thanks for the talk, thanks for the paper. I mean, the intuition that embedded systems lag behind in security is there, but putting hard number of it on it is great. So thank you for that. That being said, two questions. Firstly, you said only like you were successfully in unpacking 60% of the binaries.
Yes.
So what are with the other 40%? Are these non-Linux-based firmwares? Were they encrypted? Like, what were the core challenges you were facing there? And the second question is, will you make the data set available to the community? Because having the crawler, I mean, a lot of prior studies had crawlers, but they are now not working anymore, so reproducing the results is kind of hard. So have you considering somewhere archiving your data set?
Okay, thank you for your question. So for the first one, the success rate for unpacking the firmware is about 60%, yes. So the others are not successfully unpacked, either because they are encrypted, or it's like sometimes the tools we use, they didn't identify anything from the firmware. This is understandable because sometimes the firmware are just running on the bare metal, so they don't have a file system. So we are trying to extract the file system instead of the code running on bare metal devices. So we do have some examples like the firmware is empty to our unpacking tool because there are no file system in it. So the second one, we will release all our data set we have been used, but we didn't provide the firmware itself. Instead, we will provide you the download links and all the metadata we collected during our download. So it's already been released to the GitHub repo. So if you're looking into the paper and find the link, you should be able to have access to it.
Yeah, can you also consider to somewhere upload the data set, because those links in like practical reality go stale after a while. So just for, making it more reproducible, it would also be great to achieve the firmware itself.
We will try to do that, but again, this is for ASCO consideration. We don't know if the vendor actually allow us to, publish their firmware images to the general public. So we only provide the download links and the metadata. This is the best we can do for now.
This is Mohit from Ohio State University. So my question is, I think those vulnerabilities and those prevention in the firmware is important, but I think these vulnerabilities are more important in desktop environment because lots of servers and lots of processes runs on servers and big machines. But how difficult it is to exploit these vulnerabilities in firmware or embedded system compared to desktop?
Okay, thanks for your question. So this is a very general question, like how hard it is to hack the binary. But in this study, we only consider like how the binaries are protected with the attack mitigation. We didn't do a specific study on like measuring the level those mitigations provided for those binaries. I think this is another question. But I think in general, the memory-related memories can be protected by using stack canary or fortified source. Those are targeting on protecting the binaries from memory-related problems. So for sure, it will help to protect the binary. But if you ask how exactly it protects or how much it can protect it, I think this is out of the scope of our study. Thank you for the question.